The Penguin has long been one of Batman's most prominent members of his rogue gallery. First debuting in December of 1941 in Detective Comics issue 58, he was created by legends Bill Finger and Bob Kane, and has remained as one of Batman's largest foes for years. But it's not just his longevity that's impressive. There's a lot of interesting tidbits about the character that some fans may not know, especially pertaining to the character's cultural influence. So today we're counting down our favorite facts with our list of the top 10 Penguin shocking facts. Starting us off in at number 10, Mr. Boniface. The Penguin wasn't always the mob boss criminal mastermind we know him as today. In the early days, he was an art thief whose name was Mr. Boniface. Boniface. His criminal act in the comics was attending an art gallery and stealing an art piece by rolling it up and hiding it into his umbrella. He would then bring the piece to a local mob to prove to them that he had the criminal chops to join the group. Eventually though, he was kicked out of the gang for offending the mob boss, after the mob boss called him a bee-monocled bird. Bird jokes never sat well with Penguin. He shot the mob boss with his umbrella gun and then proceeded to claim leadership over the mob. From then on out, he told everyone to refer to him not as Penguin, but as his true name, Mr. Boniface. Years later, his real name was changed to Oswald Cobblepot. Thank God for me. Which is something that might further help explain our next number. In at 9, the Earth 2 Penguin. Now despite debuting in 1941, the Penguin's existence on Earth 2, the Earth in which all the Golden Age heroes were dispatched to after the DC multiverse was created, the Earth 2 version of the villain was never actually established on any of the Earth 2 stories. None of the villains in Batman's rogue gallery on Earth 2 ever mentioned him. Other villains are mentioned as having retired or being imprisoned or killed, or having been reformed. Comic historians have regarded this as perhaps the Golden Age Penguin was completely wiped from existence. Or, if he did exist, he was considered more of a minor villain back then. Therefore, by the time Earth 2 was established in the 60s, there was no point in having him exist in the Golden Age. And many comics historians also have established that the Earth 1 Penguin character, post-multiverse creation and 7 years after his last Golden Age story, came to be in May of 1963, with his appearance in Batman issue 155, which is titled The Return of the Penguin. Although the title of that comic complicates things. All in all, it's a bit of a messy history in terms of the continuity for our pal Oswald. Or at least Golden Age Oswald. And at number 8, name change. Jumping back to Oswald's name here, the first time Oswald Cobblepot was mentioned in the comics was in a Batman newspaper strip from 1946. Similar to the Joker, who would become more comical in his methods towards the end of the Golden Age, Penguin was caught trying to steal a letter. Ooh, big criminal, right? Now the letter was addressed to Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot, and it was from his aunt, who thought he was in charge of an umbrella corporation as some sort of big businessman. Now from there, the Penguin somehow managed to convince Batman and Robin to help him trick his aunt in order to keep up the charade. Oswald hiding his true nature from his relatives is a sentiment that hasn't completely died out either as far as the character is concerned. In the first season of Gotham, the Penguin hides from his mother that he's up to no good in the criminal world, although she eventually finds out before she's knocked off because of it. And at 7, the dynamic duo. Of a different sort. We're talking the Penguin and the Joker. So the Penguin and the Joker often got paired up together when trying to take down Batman during the Silver Age. This is primarily thanks to the Adam West 60s Batman television show, where the duo, played by Burgess Meredith and Cesar Romero, often worked together to thwart Batman with some silly scheme. This is something that continued over into Batman's crossovers with none other than Scooby-Doo. Yep. And animated Penguin and Joker would get up to all sorts of iconic Scooby-Doo mischief in order to screw with Bats and Scoobs and the gang. Now this friendship between these two villains only exists in the more lighthearted Batman media. Often these two are anything but pals, trying to one-up each other as to who is Batman's more devious foe. Although, sorry Oswald, we all know that title goes to the Joker. He's a hard act to top. And at 6, getting political. Out of all the comic book villains out there, the Penguin is often used the most to mock American politicians. Kinda funny, isn't it? Former Vice President Dick Cheney was compared to the Penguin due to his laugh that was similar to Burgess Meredith's take on the character in the 60s Batman television show. Jon Stewart of The Daily Show famously noted that one. Then in 2006, a Republican-led PR firm called DCI Group posted a video on YouTube that satirized former Democratic Vice President Al Gore's documentary An Inconvenient Truth, in which Gore was depicted as the Penguin, using a hypnotic umbrella to hypnotize a group of penguins into believing that global warming and climate change were real. Ugh. Speaking of weird political connections though, in at 5, the Bulgarian umbrella. The Penguin has a plethora of trick umbrellas over the years. It's a trademark of his. But did you know that his umbrella gun isn't just a work of fantasy? In real life, it's called a Bulgarian umbrella, which was an umbrella gun used by the KGB in order to carry out several assassinations in the late 1970s. While it isn't exactly crafted off of the KGB model, considering the Penguin was created long before those assassinations and its first noted use on September 7th in 1978, the resemblance is still uncanny, and also kind of comical. Moving on to number 4, pervy old man. I mean, can't say that isn't expected, right? We can all thank Danny DeVito for that one. Anywho, there's a horrifyingly hilarious sequence in the 2010 Birds of Prey series, in which Oswald is nearly killed by White Canary, and brought back to the Birds of Prey's base in order to recover from his unconscious state. Now during this issue, he has a nasty little fantasy about getting it on with the members of the Birds. A dream sequence in which all of the girls fawn over him and his every desire. He also makes out with Huntress, and I'm so sorry to burn your retinas with this image. In at number 3, he's a cannibal. Only on TV though. So the Penguin is often referred to as one of Batman's only villains who is technically sane, with the others in this category being Catwoman, Ra's al Ghul, and Bane, to name a few. But he has occasionally turned a dark fin, and ventured into the realm of cannibalism on the bat crazy television show Gotham. Played by actor Robin Lord Taylor, the character decides to get weird in a season 2 episode titled Wrath of the Villains Into the Woods, where he serves his stepmother dinner. Seems nice, right? Well, it turns out that that dinner is his step-siblings, who he killed and cooked up as an act of revenge for her killing his father and treating him like garbage. It's also worth noting that many other Batman villains have also dabbled in cannibalism over the years. But hey, that's a whole other list. Moving on to number 2, Judo Master. What? Yup. When you think of the Penguin, him moving around and knocking out his opponents with something other than his umbrella gun or hired goons, well, it's not the first thing that comes to mind. But turns out back in the day he used to be well trained in hand-to-hand combat. He had taken up physical fitness and martial arts with the same dedication he devoted to his birds and books, according to the man himself. On the same page that features him training, we see him whoop some dude in the face, knocking his teeth out, and then dumping caviar into his mouth. So yeah, more muscle, but still the same oddball Oswald, that's for sure. And last but not least, in our number 1 spot, his inspiration. For years there was a debate as to where the Penguin's inspiration came from. Bill Finger had claimed that the character had long been inspired by emperor penguins. There's an undisputed resemblance there. That, and that the character was meant to be a caricature of aristocrats. Now on the flip side of that, the Penguin's co-creator Bob Kane argued otherwise. He said that the character is based off of a mascot of a cigarette company, Cool Cigarettes, a menthol cigarette company that had started in 1933, and they had a mascot that was the name of Willie the Cool Penguin. Cool spelled with a K. Willie the Cool Penguin had his own history in comic strips too, ever since his creation in 1934. He even had his own comic book published by Standard Comics in 1951. As part of the funny animal subgenre, although it had a handful of subliminal messages throughout that advertised smoking to kids. Back to Oswald though. As to who is telling the truth, it is hard to say. Kane has a history of distorting the truth, and considering that Finger was long kept from his rightful title as co-creator of Batman, it wouldn't be surprising that Kane is off in his argument. That being said, publicly admitting that a cigarette mascot was the inspiration for a villain who was prominently featured in beloved comic books, especially during a post-Comic Code Authority era, well, it probably wouldn't be the most marketable idea. Alright, there we have it guys. Which of these facts about the Penguin shocked you the most? What other facts did we not mention that you think should have made our list? Give us a shout about your opinion in those comments below. Now if you dug this video, hit that like button, spread the love, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Nerd if you're new here. Come hang out with us some more. We've got a ton of lists just like this one, and you should just, click that playlist that's currently flashing on your screen to see some of them. In the meantime though, thank you for watching everyone. I'll catch you all in the next video.